So you have a CAT manual. Let's review some of the structures first. So the heart can be seen either ventrally or dorsally, so you have to do that first. So this is the ventral view, and you see this coronary artery which comes over the front of the heart. Okay, very important artery because it's the artery that supplies the heart itself with oxygen. So you never want a blockage in the coronary artery, because that will cause the muscle of the heart not to get oxygenated blood. And if it happens, you can have some of the tissue die, and that cannot be regenerated. So this is the coronary artery. It's like a claw or a hand that goes over the front of the heart. Then you have the right atrium, the left atrium. Notice it's on my right side. The ventricles, and then you have these vessels that branch off that we learned about yesterday. So you have the pulmonary artery, which is going to the lungs, the only artery to carry deoxygenated blood, pick up oxygen and come back through the pulmonary veins, which you can't see on this side. The aorta, which is leaving the heart with oxygenated blood from the back. And the brachiocephalic, which is going to the brachial region, which is the arm, and the cephalic region, which is the head. And it'll branch into the carotids, the subclavians. And then we have the dorsal view, which is the back. And here's the coronary artery. Sometimes there's a cardiac artery, which is also there, comes up to the back. And remember, it's supplying the entire heart with oxygenated blood. And then you have the vena cavas, which are entering with deoxygenated blood. And then once they go through the pulmonary artery, they're coming back through the pulmonary veins, which are right here. They're smaller, and there's usually 4. And then there's your pulmonary artery right there. So it goes to the lungs, comes back, enters there. There's your vena cava, superior and inferior. And your aorta. Apex is the point of the heart. There's these flaps called auricles. And there's 2 of them. There's on both sides. So now I am going to show you some of these structures on the heart itself. So we have a heart here, and we're going to find the front of it. So we look for the coronary artery, which comes down the front. That's the coronary artery. So I know I'm looking at the ventral view. This is an auricle, one of those flaps that I talked about. Apex is the point at the bottom. The myocardium is the wall. And we see a vessel here. I'm going to figure out what that is in a minute. So if I open it, I can now see the 2 sides, left and right. So if we figure this out by chamber, we've got the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. The papillary muscle on both sides with the cords, the chordae tendineae that we talked about yesterday that make up the valves. Tricuspid here, bicuspid mitral valve here, attached to the papillary muscle, which creates the valve. And then we have the septum, which is the wall that divides the 2 sides, okay, and separates the chambers. The myocardium is right here. And notice this is all muscle. There should be very little fat on a heart. And then we can begin to find the vessels by how they enter and leave the heart. And if we remember, the vessel that enters the heart is the vena cava. So let's go to this side and look for an opening. And I see one right there. Okay? So if I follow it, there it is. Okay? So we got the vena cavas. Blood enters, fills, and then it's going to leave the heart through the pulmonary artery. Right there. So here's the vena cava, fills. It's got to get oxygen, so it goes through the next opening, which is right there, and comes out over here. Goes to the lungs, picks up blood, and comes back. So we go to this side. Now it's coming back, and the pulmonary veins are a lot smaller. Okay? And they'll come back into the other side, the right side, with oxygenated blood, fills the left atrium, and then the left ventricle goes to the mitral valve, and then it's got to leave the heart out the aorta, the largest opening in the heart, which would be this structure right here. Okay. And if I put my finger in there, there it is. And I think you can see the opening that I just made right there. That's the aorta. And then it will branch throughout the body. So let's review some of the structures here. Coronary artery, auricle, apex, myocardium, septum, capillary muscle, chordae tendineae, mitral valve, or bicuspid, tricuspid, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, vena cava, pulmonary arteries right there, goes to the lungs, come back through the smaller pulmonary veins, fills this side and goes out the aorta, which is right there.